It's been 10 days since the senseless slaughter of the innocents took place at the Baisaran meadow of Pahalgam. People are waiting for action. There is outrage and grief pouring from all parts of the country. The whole country has been united from Kashmir to Kerala over the death of the 26 tourists on that fateful day, 22nd of April, 2025. The security grid is tightened. The dragnet has been spread wide. The two Pakistani terrorists and their overground supporters are being tracked intensely by the army, by the special forces, by the police. The Prime Minister has given a very strong statement for rooting out terrorism. And while the victims are being mourned by their loved ones, the whole nation awaits a befitting response to the perpetrators. In Pakistan, the terrorist chief Hafiz Saeed and many of his ilk are hiding in residential colonies after leaving madrasas and mosques. Pakistan has abrogated the Shimla Treaty as if it was respecting it earlier, and there is intense firing on the LOC. Back to Pahalgam massacre. Was it an intelligence failure? Security lapse? I'm Yashovardhan Azad, who had served as Special Director in the Intelligence Bureau and as Secretary Security. And I will take you through the basic steps, clearing up all the matters behind the Pahalgam massacre. So let's go back to the intelligence failure and the security lapses. Having been in the intelligence for long, let me tell you that intelligence inputs come from all over. They come from the ground, they come from satellites, they come from electronic, gadgetry, technology, but also from the human assets. They also come from open sources. They come from newspapers. The chief of the Pak Army made a statement. Many expected some kind of action in India. Many of the actions which are taken from Pakistan could be expected because it's the same pattern. The firing at the LOC, for example, to divert the attention or to allow more and more terrorists coming into Kashmir. In the case of Baisaran, there are differing versions. Some people say that there were stray intelligence inputs of some of the terrorists coming and finding out about tourists in the hotels. But these could not be operationalized because they were not precise, they were not well timed. There was no exact location. And therefore, these intelligence just remained in the air. In fact, some of them say that according to the IB, there were a loose band of some lead terrorists who were hiding in that particular area. But as far as the district police goes, it says that there were no security clearance given to that particular area. While the CAPF says that the positioning of the special forces is only there when the Amarnath Yatra is on, and the district authorities say that, well, it's very well known that that's a big tourist spot. So what exactly was the reason why there was no placement of security men over there? As a superintendent of police, whenever there's an area inhabited by so many tourists, and especially 1,000 strong, there should be positioning of forces over there. In that respect, it was certainly a security lapse. What is an intelligent input? Intelligence inputs come from the ground. In good old days, the village kotwars would come to our police stations on their weekly or fortnightly visits with their Fauti Pedaish register and give all kinds of information from the village. Who were the new people who came in? Which were the marriages which were held? Who were the people who have gone out to study? Who were the people who have gone over to different villages to settle down? Information like this in tits and bits form a kind of a chain of information which we then build into an intelligent input. Intelligence comes from satellites. It comes from electronic, gadgetry, technology. In Kashmir, for example, some of the finest officers like Ashok Bhan or Shiv Sahai got most of their information from the people. They were very close, popular. So when intelligent inputs come to you, you look at them, you thread them together, and then come out with a reasonable body of information inputs over which a policy action can be taken. Why it failed in Kashmir is important. Is it the reliance on tech too much? Is it that human assets have been lost sight of? Is it that there was complacency in the area? In 2024, there were 2 crore tourists who had visited Kashmir. And maybe that was a kind of a lull which the police and the district administration were enjoying before the Amarnath Yatra would start and the entire institution machinery will start working. But security is something you can't lose sight of, or you can't have a lull period. You have to work at it. And I think in that respect, there has been a security and intelligence failure. In fact, many of the officers which I wanted to speak to of Jammu and Kashmir cadre were reluctant to speak because in anonymity, they of course admitted that it was a security and intelligence failure. General, Pahalgam massacre, is it all about intelligence and security failure?
See, Yasho, when any operations happen, the entire background to it comes from intelligence. So you've been in an intelligence agency yourself, you've been in the IB, you would know it better whether it was intelligence failure or not, and you know the value of intelligence. And the value of intelligence is that if you know, then you will not allow the problem to come up. And if the problem comes up, in any case, will be referred back to the intelligence failure.
I agree. General, intelligence is a very vital tool which aids the security forces, the army, and everyone. In this particular case, intelligence, there were stray inputs which the intelligence guys say was floating in the air, that a few people are going and going to the hotels, going to the area and finding out the numbers of people, the tourists, etc. But as we say, these inputs were not actionable in the sense that they were not precise and therefore they could not be acted upon. Even the people say that intelligence was available from the IB, that there was some loose band of lead terrorists who were hanging around in the area. But again, nothing specific. Each group was trying to give that deniability. The CAFPF, the paramilitary or what we call the Central Police Forces, they said that in this particular area in the higher reaches, we do the posting whenever the Amarnath Yatra is on. The police says that we had not given the security clearance, but the district administration says that no, people have been going there since a long time. So each one is trying to deny its own responsibility.
And I think there is also a difference between information and intelligence. A lot of people think information is intelligence. Information is not intelligence, because information is also sitting very close to misinformation and disinformation. Whereas intelligence actually makes sure that information is converted into a tangible, actionable, processed, analyzed, systematic input for a precision operation to happen. I think that is what our agencies put together as we say multi-agency concept in a unified concept. I think there are far too many agencies sometimes working, and one thinks that somebody would do it. So it's like story of 4 people and nobody did anything about it. And I think one person has to be made responsible for it. Ultimately, the buck should stop at that one person.
Well, in 26/11 in Mumbai, the Home Minister resigned and also the NSA resigned. So yes, but I think right now, General, is not the time to look into that. Right now is the time to spread your dragnet and get those Pakistanis, because I believe there were 2 Pakistanis and 4 overground workers. Once we get them, then we get a whole lot of evidence from their boots, from the M4 carbines they are carrying, or from the equipment which they are carrying for communication, etc. Of course, they don't use it that much. And then let the NIA prepare the dossiers properly. We share it with the world capitals, and that's the time when we pause, think, reflect, and then take the kind of action as you have suggested. General, you have served both on the LOC and the LAC. Now, the common folk wants to know this unprovoked firing which is taking place on the LOC for last, I think since 23rd it started. How do we respond to it? Just bludgeon it? Or what are the ways you deal with it?
Yasho, you have to put the LC firing in a context of what happened in Pahalgam. Before the incident of Pahalgam, we were having a ceasefire with Pakistan. That was an agreement not to fire. But India has gone through many churns of ceasefires and firing and the active LC. When Pakistan starts firing on the LC or LOC, as people talk about, it means 2 things. One is that they want to scare you and show that they are present and we should not do anything. Second is that traditionally they have been firing on the line of control to aid infiltrators who, in the garb of firing, the Indian troops they think will have the head down into the trenches and they would infiltrate. But currently what they are doing is they are just trying to cover the weakness by showing their aggression. And this is how it is, I see.
General, do you feel that this is fire which is, we have since 2021 has benefited Pakistan more because they have diverted their troops on the Afghan border because of the expulsion of 1 lakh Afghans. They are on a tense face-off with the Tehreek-e-Taliban. They are in Balochistan crushing the insurgency. Every day there is a new dissent coming up in Gilgit-Baltistan. And also it has given time for them to protect Chinese interests, CPEC. Do you feel that this ceasefire has helped us? Of course, moving some troops to the LAC.
Yasho, if you really look at the map of Pakistan and you see the Indus River, it is also called the blue line or the water line. Mm-hmm. The territory on the other side, which is the western side, is treated as scruff territory. Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and then further north, it is the northern agencies. Pakistan Army or the governments have been less interested in this area as far as peace and prosperity is concerned. This is a place where the Pakistan Army is allowed to unleash their ordnance at will at any time. And the only real estate that they have is the Sindh and Punjab Punjab being the foremost. So as a result, the ceasefire has helped them from a point of view of saving their ammunition, saving the casualty of the troops. Also, it blunts the image of Pakistan Army when it takes beating at the hands of Indians. Yeah. And then go around and tom-tom in, big vehicles and, beautiful ceremonial way the Pakistani generals go around and dealing with people. They are the Maharajas. And therefore, they want to show that they have done a great job, that the Pakistan Army is beating the Tehreek-e-Taliban and the Baluch, insurgency and all. So I think it is more image building and saving their casualties and preserving their arms and ammunition. Pakistan is in a very dire state at the moment. I think they have not been able to control anything which any government should be able to control. Everything is out of control in Pakistan.
Well, General, then after the Pahalgam massacre, the slaughter events, there's an outpouring of grief from all parts of the country and the nation looks for a response. Militarily, when firing takes place along the LOC and you're thinking in terms of limited options, what would you do? Would you do a precision strike at the camps opposite the line, or would you like to push the LOC westward? what are the kind of options which the military really exercises at this point of time?
Actually, when you look at Pakistan, I think India has no time and energy to waste on Pakistan because we've got larger things to do. We have greater challenges and greater aspirations. And I think that is one thing that Pakistan doesn't like, that they are in no scheme of things as far as India is concerned. And they constantly want to nudge India to say, we are also there, you know, so pay attention to us also, because they want to internationalize issues. They want to actually show. Without India, what is Pakistan? Nothing. It is only the moment there is a firing, there is a statement, there is something, Pakistan comes on the radar of the world. Otherwise, without India, if India doesn't look at Pakistan, nobody looks at Pakistan. So I think this is one way to draw attention of the international community that, hey, listen, there is a Pakistan and we have a problem. Look at us and give us support. Give us IMF funding, give us arms, ammunition. We have a problem, you know, in the AFPAC area. So I think this is like a begging bowl with noise that pay attention to us. But I will also say that the whole issue of making a big, bold statements, bravado of the Pakistan Army and the generals is like, for example, the Chief of Army Staff making a statement, you know, jugular vein, which he doesn't understand what it actually means. But what is you know, Hindu versus Muslim and two-nation theory. So really speaking, this is like a needle and thread being used, जो होते ना छिदी हुई चद्दर, जब एक वो फैब्रिक फट रहा हो तो उसको स्टिच करने के लिए जो चीज यूज की जाती है, that is to stick the whole fabric together is two-nation theory, Hindu-Muslim, you know, we are superior and all that, and Islam ko khatra, and सारे इकट्ठे हो जाओ. So a fabric which is being torn, and if you as India is given a responsibility to go and tear the complete cloth, which is already actually disintegrating, what would you do? फटी हुई चादर को फाड़ने के लिए अगर आपको टास्क दिया जाए तो आप क्या करोगे? आप किसी भी तरीके से फाड़ सकते हो. There are 1,000 options. But would you spend your valuable time and energy to sort out something which is already sorting itself out? But yes, there is anger. And because there is anger, certain things will have to be done only to address the anger of people. Because they have drawn attention of people to this point that something needs to be done. But even if you do something, Pakistan is largely now more of a jungle, more of a scruff, and therefore the only people who are showing that Pakistan is in a state of existence is the Pakistan military. Even the political establishment has literally perished. They're also making some noises of existence and some semblance of governance, but actually there's nothing.
Okay, so then what are the options you'll consider if I ask you?
See, the point is that with Pakistan, if you look at how the Pakistan state today is built on, it was built on some foundation of a belief. That foundation is shaken up because that belief is inconsequential, is not in existence anymore. The current state of Pakistan is that people are not talking to one another on the basis of either he's a Baluch or a Sindhi or from the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or somewhere else. The Punjabis are the only ones now who are hold Pakistan to ransom as their real estate, as if this is a personal Jageer.
Yeah.
And Pakistan has realized that there are only few people, and that to military generals and who are all basically Punjabis, they are actually eating the cream. And most of them run away after they've done the stint. And they all understand that most of the wealth of Pakistan is not in Pakistan. It is taken away from Pakistan, which becomes the personal wealth of certain politicians or certain generals. And Pakistan is very angry, I think, as people against their own. So if something is done in Pakistan, if there is a jolt of any kind, it can be military jolt, economic jolt, jolt of, say, depriving them of water, I think will serve them equally well. But it is just that I think the sentiments got to be addressed differently and the problem got to be addressed differently. It all depends whether you want to address the sentiments or you want to address the problem.
So, kinetic action or not?
Well, kinetic action should be there. Kinetic action has to be actually aimed at those people who are the ones who are creating a problem. And there are very few people that you can count on one hand who are creating a problem. And some of them are in uniform and some of them are not in uniform. And I think just throwing bombs on people who are as it is suffering is another matter. I mean, yeah, there will be large number of casualties. But the point is there are handlers of terrorists, there are handlers of infiltrators, there are handlers of, various tanzeems. I think those people are a handful of them. And Yasho, you belong to a core of, operators who understands this very well, how to sort out.
Let me ask you the last question, General. In this Pahalgam case, has the threshold of violence been crossed?
Yes, the threshold of violence has been crossed. It has been designed in a manner that to separate people of one religion, and not only separating them, but the way they were separated. Asking them to remove their trousers, asking them to read kalmas, not allowing their families to be part of this, rather than they were separated out to witness all this. So I think it was designed in a manner to provoke a very hard response from India, which would in a way help Pakistan to bring India into a conflict which was currently out of conflict because of many global opportunities which were coming to India. This is not the right time for Pakistan to look at India growing in peace, prosperity, and in a very opportunistic manner India was looking at the whole world. I think it is to steal all the opportunities from India, draw India into a conflict. So to draw India into a conflict, they had to do something which was designed in a manner that it provokes anger and retaliation.
Thank you. Many people ask me, what is this Indus Waters Treaty all about and how can it be explained in simple terms? So I asked my friend KBS Sidhu, who retired as Special Chief Secretary Punjab and held the position of Principal Secretary Water Resources and Irrigation. And I asked KBS, what is Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 and what are its main features? Try and explain it to the common folk.
Thank you very much, Yasho, for having me on your show. The best way to understand Indus Waters Treaty is to imagine 6 great Himalayan rivers as a single river system shared by 2 newly partitioned nations, India and Pakistan. Indus and its 5 tributaries, Satluj, Beas, Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum. Now, till 15th August 1947, this basin was managed as one under the British rule, with vast canal irrigation network, with diversion barrages that channeled waters to canals, irrigating lakhs of acres. So what happens after partition? Both India and Pakistan realized that they needed to have an amicable settlement, a kind of a lasting treaty, to avoid any water-related issues and flashpoints. So in 1951, they both invited the World Bank to act as a mediator. And why World Bank? Because it was tied up with giving loans for Bhakhara Nangal project in India and similarly other projects in Pakistan, Varsak, Chashma projects and so on and so forth. And these were expensive, long-drawn negotiations spread over a number of years, beginning in 1951 and ultimately culminating after 9 years of hard negotiations and marathon talks on 19th of September 1960. Pandit Nehru specifically flew to Karachi, President Field Marshal Ayub Khan, and the pact was also endorsed and guaranteed by none other than the World Bank. So what does this treaty effectively do? On a gross basis, India got only 20% of the waters, which is 33 million acre feet. And 80% went to Pakistan, 135 million acre feet. Now that's got to do with geography and topography and so on. But that is what was finally clinched. Broadly, river-wise, what happened? India had near exclusive rights over what are called the eastern rivers, Satluj, Beas and Ravi. which means you could pretty much do whatever you wanted to do with the waters of these rivers. For irrigation, for hydropower pondage, for flood control, and you had the right to build whatever you wanted to do on these rivers. And for the western rivers, that is the Indus, Chenab and Jhelum, Pakistan had full rights, subject to small bit of rights for India. That is only 3.6 million acre feet of these western rivers, benefiting mainly Jammu and Kashmir, for limited electricity generation and whatever pondage was connected with that. And you could not then use these waters for more consumptive use as irrigation. So the water, if you generate electricity, had to go back into the main river. So that was what India got, and the remaining was Pakistan's share. Now the catch was that you had to take permission of Pakistan authorities for each and every work that you had to effect, even on these little bit of works that you had to do on the western rivers. In any case, you had a permanent Indus Commission meeting twice a year, once in India, once in Pakistan, to sort out petty issues and disputes. And this treaty survived the Indo-Pak War of 1965-71, Kargil operation. But the fact remains that India was not able to utilize its full quota of 3.6 million acre feet on the western rivers of Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. And the loss was not only of India, but more particularly of Jammu Kashmir.
So, KBS, has India used the full quota of the western rivers and the Ravi?
I'm glad that you asked that question, because this is a question which all the people from all across the world, including Punjabi diaspora and USA and Canada, have been asking. In practice, it is a hard fact that even though we had a limited excess or entitlement of 3.6 MAF in the rivers of Indus, Chenab and Jhelum, the western rivers, till now, 65 years after signing this treaty, we have been able to exploit only 0.2 million acre feet, 6%. And installed capacity could have been and should have been as high as 18 gigawatts. We are still around 3.2 gigawatts. So the major sufferer, Jammu and Kashmir, where these rivers were supposed to generate this electricity. Now, Ravi River, totally within the purview of India, and a river which traverses Jammu Kashmir and Punjab, we were not able to harness this till year 2000, when the Ranjit Sagar Dam, as it is now called, then Thin Dam on River Ravi came up. And downstream that, we have the Shahpur Kandi Dam project. Just like underneath Bhakhara Dam, you got Nankal Dam. So Shahpur Kandi Dam project, national project, delays mired by interstate wranglings, started only in 2013. And now it is expected that it may go on stream in June this year. So that would really be limiting the Ravi waters, which are 100% ours, to go to Pakistan.
So what does suspending the treaty mean? Is it legal? What impact will we have? And what should we do next?
What does suspending of the treaty mean? Suspending of the treaty does not mean there is a tap that you close and water stops flowing. It's a legal word terminology to keep the operation of the treaty in abeyance. So therefore, once India has done it, what then happens is that for the projects which are already on the anvil and within our allocated share of 3.6 MAF in Jammu and Kashmir on the western rivers, you need not now, go to Pakistan and, try and address their frivolous objections. So we can straight away go ahead. If there are projects underway, we execute that in accordance with our project report. But more importantly is that if now we are going to go a step further and say we are asserting our full rights onto the remaining water of Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab, then again we don't need to go to Pakistan, because we were not in any case entitled to those waters under the treaty. But now that we put it in abeyance, obviously we can undertake projects which in the narrow confines of the treaty were not permitted. So therefore, questions are being asked by legal experts. Can you do it? Where is the provision of suspending in Indus Waters Treaty? And they're throwing the rule book at you. International experts, legal experts, riparian experts, they say that if the national interest, the sovereign interest, the national security of a country is being jeopardized by arguably Pakistan-abetted terrorism, then India is under no obligation to not suspend. And conversely, there is no explicit clause which says you will not suspend. So in the general law of the land, India has the right to suspend, and it has done so. So to sum up, gates that you create will reduce the outflows within about 3 years, and large reservoirs, if fast-tracked, not business as usual type of a thing, without any constraints of the treaty now being in place, you could actually have and harness another 3 to 4 billion acre feet annually and add 3 gigawatts of evening peak power in next 5 years. And Jammu Kashmir should be, and rightfully, along with Ladakh, be the major beneficiary. To end, people say, what are you doing? You're weaponizing, this is not ethical, and so on and so forth. We are not weaponizing water. India is asserting its sovereign rights over its national asset, and it is just stopping decades of one-sided charity and use the national assets, the river waters, for our own irrigation, our own hydroelectric generation and flood control, benefiting most importantly Jammu, Kashmir, Ladakh and Punjab. Thank you.
Thanks, KBS, for that explaining the Indus Waters Treaty for the common man, that great clarity. So after the outrage, the options available before us, what is the diplomatic endgame? I asked Suhasini, one of the famous journalists who's well versed in Pakistan affairs and Kashmir. And this is what she said. We have basically a reactive policy with Pakistan. What should we do at a strategic level? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I do think that the Pahalgam terror attack has crossed a red line in many respects. The first one really being the brutality of the attack itself, the fact that it was meant not only to strike fear amongst Indians or to crush the Kashmiri economy that was just beginning to pick up, but also to send a communal message to religiously divide the groups and to execute 26 men who were killed on April 22nd. I think that's the first part. The second seems to be a direct link to comments made by the Pakistani military establishment that held India responsible for an attack a month ago in which 26 people were killed on the Jafar Express in Balochistan, and a kind of almost like a message sent by the Pakistani army chief on Kashmir being a jugular vein that cannot be ignored by Pakistan just a few days before this attack. So that must be investigated. I think the third part that really does cross a red line is the operations themselves. The fact that the 4 men believed to be responsible for this massacre in a meadow in Pahalgam were well trained enough to be able to not just come into that meadow, to know the security environment there, to continue killing people for more than half an hour, and then to be exfiltrated or to be taken out of there safely as well and are still being looked for. I think that's the third part. And all of these need a kind of serious consideration by our security establishment, by security forces, as well as strategists looking for where this is going to lead next. In terms of what should be done next, I think there's no question that that the government is considering all its military options. So the diplomatic measures that have been taken, the bilateral as well as the multilateral measure taken in terms of the Indus Water Treaties suspension, but also now that the government has made it clear that the Prime Minister has given a free hand to the military, to security forces to look at a response. And I think those have to be also considered very carefully, because if you look at the Indian response after the 2008 attack, the 2016 attack on the Pathankot Air Force Base, when Pakistani investigators were actually invited in to help with the investigation, to look at the response to the Uri attack in 2016 of September, where there was a cross-LOC strike, to look at the 2019 Pulwama attack and the response there. It is clear that the government would want to try something new. The element of surprise has to be maintained as much as possible in terms of sending a message back to Pakistan. But it's also extremely important to ensure that that message is not just a message of revenge or of wreaking havoc in retaliation. That message has to not only be a deterrent against such heinous attacks in the future, it has to look at how to ensure that Pakistan itself changes its policies towards supporting terror groups, towards sending proxies across the LOC. That's a much more difficult, much more long-term situation. I think when you ask about the idea of what is the strategic thinking that is needed with Pakistan, I think the first thing that perhaps has been shown over the last 30, 40 years, but particularly in the last decade and a half or 2 decades since the Mumbai attacks, is firstly, while talking to Pakistan doesn't necessarily ensure that there won't be terror attacks, not talking does not give you that outcome either. So one must be strategic about it. It may be very difficult for a country that has suffered so much at the hands of a neighbor to actually think about diplomacy with that neighbor. But you have to think about what this achieves for India's interests. After all, in 2021, India did negotiate a ceasefire at the LOC with Pakistan, which was very useful when we saw what was happening with China at the LAC at that time. So when it is in India's interest, it is possible to negotiate. When there was a misfiring, a mistake with a missile test firing that happened in India, and that missile then landed in Pakistan, there was a back channel in place that discussed de-escalation, telling Pakistan to wait for a longer inquiry, and that inquiry found that a mistake had been made. So it is possible to do that kind of back channel talks as well when it is necessary to de-escalate. Do we need to think broader? My own suggestion has been that while we need to look at all the different military, escalatory, retaliatory, undercover, psyops, all kinds of warfare when it comes to this kind of dealing with Pakistan, I think it's also necessary to look at an idea that has been built over years but been rejected in more recent times. That is the peace process we saw between 2003 and 2008 that was negotiated by 2 Indian governments, in fact, both in terms of the Vajpayee government and then the Manmohan Singh government, that looked at ways of making the LOC a de facto international boundary. This is something Pakistan will not want. This is something many in India will also object to, because of course there is a parliamentary resolution that says Kashmir is all of Kashmir is an integral part of India. But if you want to somehow end the Pakistani dream of continuously using the impermanence and the permeability of the line of control into Kashmir as a way to carry out its proxy war, then you have to consider the idea of turning it into an international boundary as well. So I think it's necessary to have intellectual discussions, to have all kinds of discussions over what can be a long-term solution with Pakistan. But I think the policy of saying Pakistan doesn't count, Pakistan can't do anything to us, and that we can completely ignore Pakistan and cut it out of our lives, I think that is not a very sensible or pragmatic view either.
Now, in the diplomatic front, the diplomatic missions have been reduced drastically on both sides. But at this particular point of time, it appears that the world has supported India, is condemned the massacre in Pahalgam, but is also asking for restraint on both sides. I asked my friend, another domain expert, M.N. Sabharwal, who was our High Commissioner to Pakistan, to explain what is this drastic reduction of the numbers in the embassy mean? Does it mean that we completely are cut off from talks? So I asked Sabharwal to explain it too for us.
Well, Yasho, the agreed size of the two high commissions on both sides is 110 officers and staff members in all. Now, in each moment of crisis, one country or the other has curtailed that strength and the other country has retaliated to reduce it to the same number. So in the latest round, in 2020, India asked Pakistan to reduce the strength of its High Commission by half, that is to 55. That is after we had arrested some of their consular people spying, etc., etc. Pakistan did the same for our High Commission, and now that strength has been reduced from 50 to 30. India reduced it to 30 after the Pahalgam attack, and Pakistan has reciprocated, and our mission is also down to 30. What is important this time is that India expelled Pakistan's air, naval, and armed forces, army advisors. Pakistan has done likewise. India had already said that we would withdraw them. It's a signal each time, strength has been curtailed. It's been a signal by India that it's not business as usual. In any case, in today's circumstances, the work goes down drastically. Visas are not being issued, and so on. So you don't need so many people. And to express a degree of displeasure. But it doesn't mean that, there is no diplomatic contact between the two countries. There are charges on both sides with 29 other colleagues. The strength is down to 30. So there is that channel available. Now, whether it can be useful or not in these conditions, it's very difficult to say.
So, Sharath, tell me, how do you view the support of the various countries for India on the Pahalgam issue?
Well, international support to us has been on the expected lines after Pahalgam attack.
I don't want war, I want peace. But if Pakistan attacks India, I will support India.
As in the case of earlier egregious terror attacks, all key partners of India, major countries have spoken, their leaders have spoken to our Prime Minister, have expressed sympathy, condemned the attack. The UN Security Council adopted a press statement condemning the attack. So that's been on the expected lines. But the problem is, as in the past, when things start moving towards escalation, that's when most countries start advising restraint. And the Americans are doing this already. Trump said initially the two countries can sort it out. Then the State Department spokesperson said, we are urging them to reach a responsible solution. And now they are saying that they are in touch with both the countries and they are encouraging other major countries also to get in touch with India and Pakistan and asking them not to escalate. So that's one side of it. We should be mindful that if things move towards an escalation, this doesn't mean that, this kind of council would prevent us from taking any kinetic action that we wish to take. But if things thereon start moving towards an escalatory ladder, that's when, this kind of council will come our way again and more pressure will apply. And the last point I would want to make is that the key countries are not about to abandon Pakistan. Let's be very clear about it, whether it's the United States or our close friend Saudi Arabia now, or the UAE, etc., etc. And in many cases, the major countries see it as a very volatile space with nuclear weapons, and they wouldn't do anything which sort of, for example, withdrawing economic support, which leads to Pakistan's collapse and leads to a more serious situation.
Finally, let me ask you a question. What reaction do you expect from Pakistan if India delivers a well-timed, precise strike, it could be kinetic too.
We are already being asked by key countries, at least the United States, they have said it publicly, to exercise restraint, not to escalate things. And while that will not prevent us from taking kinetic military action, but if things start moving towards an escalatory ladder, that's when the international community gets very anxious, especially because of the nuclear dimension. And we should expect them to counsel restraint and try and put a little more pressure on both sides, not to escalate any further.
While doing the show, I got a message from my friend Amitabh Mathur, another Pakistan expert. He was in the RAW and later retired as Secretary ARC. He says, our approach to Pakistan has been one of tactical reaction to the periodic provocations we have seen since long. We have tried coercion, we have extended a hand of friendship, we have ignored it as we have had the last decade and more. Is it not time to adopt a strategic approach, decide whether this country in its present shape unsettles regional stability and impedes progress, and that its territorial integrity is not sacrosanct? Remove the army from the equation by inflicting on it a humiliation that pushes it off center stage? Meaning, rather than letting it remain on the edge of abyss, help it tilt over and be recast in a more suitable way. What will be the consequences of this? Or admit the neighbor cannot be wished away, and without being diverted by occasional setbacks, stick to engaging with it to work towards a stable, peaceful neighbor, and wise words to reflect upon.